horizon, this simply does not make sense. So out of this, today we meet about an acute humanitarian crisis, and we need to address that in Gaza right now, as is being done. And I agree with much that has been said on that specific issue, but it's just in the middle of conflict, in the middle of a downward spiral, that we need to start thinking of what happens later. And Norway remains committed, as we have been for the last 3 decades, and we stand ready to work with you to try to find that solution. Thank you. Shukran.
Thank you, Mr. Esben, Foreign Minister of Norway, for your address. And I now call on Ms. Oko Kamikawa, the Foreign Minister of Japan.
As the situation surrounding Israel and Palestine is growing tense, it is indeed opportune to hold this conference. I'd like to pay our greatest tribute to President al-Sisi for his strong leadership. Japan once again unequivocally condemns the terror attacks committed by Hamas and others on October 7th. The international community should never tolerate such a heinous act. Japan's position on this issue is consistent. We put great importance to the following 3 points. Firstly, immediate release of hostages and securing safety of civilians. Secondly, all parties need to act in accordance with international law. And thirdly, calming down the situation as soon as possible. We need to redouble our diplomatic effort in order to prevent the instability from spilling over in the region and to calm down the situation as soon as possible. Japan has had close consultations with regional key players such as Palestine, Israel, Arab states, and Iran. On October 17th, I hosted the G7 Foreign Ministers teleconference as the chair of G7. Especially the most imminent challenge now is to minimize the deterioration of the humanitarian situation. More than 1 million innocent people in Gaza Strip are in an extremely dire condition. The supply of food, water, and electricity is about to run out. There are 2 things we need to work on now. Firstly, we need to deliver necessary assistance to the people in the Gaza Strip as early as possible. Secondly, it is imperative to realize evacuation of foreign citizens who still remain in the Gaza Strip. Those foreign citizens are all friends of Palestine. Also, Japan has already announced emergency humanitarian assistance worth $10 million in total for the people in the Gaza Strip. It is the first shot of assistance Japan is planning, and we will keep on considering assistance based on the needs on the ground in a timely manner. In this context, I would like to stress the importance of actual delivery of humanitarian goods to each person. To this end, Egypt plays a key role. I hear that trucks carrying humanitarian aid entered the Gaza Strip this morning for the first time since the beginning of the current situation. Japan welcomed this as a positive development towards improving the humanitarian situation on the ground and pay deep respect to those who have worked hard to make it happen. In close cooperation with Egypt, other countries, and international organizations, we will make our utmost effort so that the humanitarian goods will be delivered as soon as possible. Now, I would like to touch upon the mid to long-term vision. As I mentioned earlier, the terror attacks by Hamas and others should be categorically denied. At the same time, it is also a sad reality that we hear voices of people in part of the world that praise such an act. It is a reminder of people's exasperation at the still bleak prospect of the Middle East peace process that has worked for the past 30 years. We must not let the tragedy we are witnessing now shut the windows of peace opportunity for Middle East peace. Only through dialogue can we solve this issue. Japan's position to support a two-state solution is unwavering. For decades, Japan has been supporting confidence building and economic self-reliance of Palestine, which serve as a foundation of the peace process. Japan's firm commitment for Palestine will never change, as you can see in our assistance for UNRWA that has surpassed $1 billion in total, as well as a Jericho Agro-Industrial Park project under the Corridor of Peace and Prosperity initiatives. This is a critical moment. Let us share our grand vision to pursue the world in harmony, not division or confrontation. Let us put together our capacity and wisdom to ensure safety for civilians, to calm down the situation and make sure that people in the region can enjoy sustainable peace and security. Shukran jazilan wassalam alaikum. Thank you very much.
I thank Ms. Yuku, the Foreign Minister of Japan, and I now call on Mr. James Clarley, the Foreign Minister of the United Kingdom. I call on him to take the floor.
Mr. President, for convening this incredibly important meeting at this difficult time. I am sure we all share the revulsion at Hamas's murderous acts of terrorism, the targeting of the civilians, the murdering of children, the desecration of dead bodies. And I'm sure we are all distressed by the plight of Palestinian civilians in Gaza, whose lives have been made harder, more painful, and more dangerous because of the brutal attacks by Hamas on the 7th of October. And we all mourn the dead, both Israeli and Palestinian. This has been an issue which has long stimulated passions, and we are now all seeing on social media and in our communities how divisive and polarizing the current situation has become. So we have a duty to work together to prevent instability from engulfing the region and claiming yet more lives. We must work together to prevent the tragic situation in Gaza becoming a regional conflict, because that is exactly what Hamas wants. We remind ourselves that just months ago, the Negev summit was a moment of hope for peaceful coexistence between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Hamas has long stood in direct opposition to that vision, and we must therefore ensure that Hamas does not win. Rather, we must ensure that peaceful coexistence wins. The UK notes the thoughtful and calm words of President Abbas on behalf of the Palestinian people, and we are grateful to the governments who are seeking to intercede on behalf of those held hostage and those foreign nationals who are trapped in Gaza. And we are grateful for the work to ensure that the humanitarian aid, which many of us have partially funded, reaches those Gazans who are deeply in need. The UK is clear and has been consistently clear that Israel has the right to self-defense and the right to secure the release of those who were kidnapped on the 7th of October. And we are also clear that we must work, and they must work, to alleviate the suffering of the Palestinian people in Gaza, and that their actions are in accordance with international law. I have spoken directly to the Israeli government about their duty to respect international law and the importance of preserving civilian lives in Gaza. Despite the incredibly difficult circumstances, I have called for discipline and professionalism and restraint from the Israeli military. The situation currently unfolding is probably the most challenging situation that I have had to deal with in my professional, personal, or political life. And I suspect that I am not alone. But I still believe in the power of diplomacy, and I still believe that we can work together to secure a future where Israelis and Palestinians live in peace. We can and should work together to achieve that peaceful, sustainable, two-state solution with Israelis and Palestinians not just living beside each other, but working with each other and securing peace for the future. Shukran.
I thank Mr. James Curley, the Foreign Minister of the United Kingdom. And now allow me to thank Dear Majesties, Highnesses, and Excellencies, heads of states, heads of governments, heads of organizations and delegations for their addresses, which reflect deep recognition of the current crisis and their keenness on their containing the crisis, the repercussions of the crisis. And now allow me to announce the conclusion of the opening session, and we are going to resume our meeting in 30 minutes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.